Welcome back to the Infinite Rabbit Hole. I'm your host, Jeremy, and today we're going to dive into part 2 of our coverage on November 13th, 2024's Congressional hearing on UAP disclosure. Yesterday, if you're in the live chat, we did part 1 where we dove into the first 30 minutes of the live stream from Congress, and we're going to look at some more tonight. I don't think we're going to do a part 3 no matter how far we get into the video. I think this is going to kind of just be it. So, yeah, it is what it is. I can tell you I did watch the last hour and a half of it on my own. And a lot of it is just the same questions in different order. That's really what it was. But we do get some good stuff here in the next 30 minutes that we'll cover tonight. We'll stop periodically to talk about it and put out some of our personal feels and ideas. Before we do that, I do have to announce that we are Jeffless right now. He could be coming back in here shortly. We don't know. We had him in the green room when we were getting ready to go live, and he backed out. And so when he does get back in here, if you're in the live chat, boo him hard, let him know how disgruntled you are, tell him you want a refund of not money, but time, and hold him accountable. Take him to small claims court. That's what I would do, personally. Yeah. Jacob, what's up, dude?
Just waiting on Jeff, as always.
Right. It's been a while since it's been just us two.
Yeah. No, I don't know. I'm looking forward to hearing the big reveal of the thing that you're thinking about that you are really unwilling to say because you want to wait for the episode to play. So we'll see.
Well, we can kind of talk about that right now, actually. So going through, right, yesterday we had the congressional hearing, and I didn't get to watch the whole thing, so I went back and watched it today, just kind of, absorbed it all, listened, and had some time to think about what they were talking about, because a lot of the people out there on social media seem to be pretty disappointed with it. And at the end of it all, I can also say, obviously I felt a little disappointed with it too. But what did you actually think that we were going to get from this? Did you think that we were going to get somebody to come forward and say, hey, yes, they do exist? Well, we did, right? It just wasn't from the mouth that you wanted it from. A lot of people were expecting like an official thing where, I don't know, there was a disclaimer or a seal of approval with this statement, but it just wasn't ever going to be that way, right? We did get multiple people that came forward and said, yes, we do have biological intelligences controlling whatever these things are in the skies that we're seeing that are chasing down nuclear carriers and nuclear submarines of our Navy and the navies worldwide, as well as going into military facilities, especially nuclear ones like the Malmstrom Air Force Base in Montana, and shutting down their nuclear reactors. Then I can't remember what his name was, but he was the admiral that's on the 4 people sitting up front there, being questioned by Congress. He talked a lot about these things coming out of the water, and he even had made mention at one point, and I think we do get to that here today within the next 30 minutes of this video. He talked about how nations worldwide, not just the United States, have this evidence. They have videos, they have pictures, they have digital recordings, all sorts of information stockpiled away of what we see. And then there was even a mention of how the gimbal Go Fast and what was the third one, Jake? Do you remember? Gimbal Go Fast
Tic Tac
video. Thank you. Those things are damn near 20 years old already. Did you know that?
I didn't, but that's what they said.
So when we got those, when we talked about that very, very early in this podcast, which was almost 4 years ago now, those were already 10 years old at the time. So, I mean, I think we're closer to 15 years old, but they did throw around the 20 mark during this congressional hearing. But, even they said that's with the technology that we had 20 years ago, not with what the technology we have now. And then another guy made a really good point saying, and this was one of the scientists that's up there, and we're going to meet him here very soon, but he also said something along the lines of, we don't have the right tools, or we're not using the right tools to be able to track these things. So when you see the gimbal go fast and Tic Tac videos, you're looking at that through weaponry on U.S. military aircraft. Whereas if we're looking at something, let's say, I think the example he used was something out in space, right? A moon on Jupiter, or a nebula out in space. You're going to use a telescope specifically made for that. Well, if we're trying to track ballistic missiles coming into U.S. airspace, or up in the air when we're flying in dogfights, we're going to be using the stuff that we caught these videos on.
Oh, look who it is.
Oh, holy shit. Everybody boo this fucking man. Boo him.
Boo.
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 What an asshole.
He looks
oh
fed
my
up.
god.
Gosh. Jeff's sassy today.
Damn,
look how sassy
dude.
he is. He's
Let me tell you,
sassy.
I got to vent to the people real quick, okay? Let me just say this out loud to the internet, and hopefully somebody who works at Apple fucking hears this shit. Tell me how I can use my iPhone as a camera on a PC. Boom, no fucking problem. I plug the iPhone into a Mac, doesn't want to fucking work. Riddle me this shit, Batman.
Because screw you, that's why.
That's it.
Because brand loyalty is fucking important and all, right, Mac? Right, Apple? You fucking idiots.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
because they want to get you to buy a Android phone to use it on the Mac.
They can fucking fuck right off. Dude.
Come on, man. Use that space between your ears, bro.
Sorry, guys, man. That I was here. I could hear. I had audio and shit. It's just damn.
You could hear us talking mad shit about you.
No,
That's dope.
I don't give a shit about you talking shit about me, bro.
You do. Look at how mad you are.
You're not even real.
Look how mad he is.
He's so mad. He's just mad because I'm taller than him.
You're just part of the simulator. You're an NPC, bro. You're fine.
Maybe you're an NPC.
Maybe
you're the mad, angry NPC on GTA 5, the guy that's cussing at himself walking down the street.
That's true.
You just dome him with a baseball bat. You got to eat that Snickers. You turn into a real drama queen when you're hungry.
It's a Snickers ice cream bar.
Well, even still, you turn into a real crazy diva that can't figure out electronics when you're hungry.
I finished the hearing.
Well, that's good.
Okay. Well, good. Yeah. So, anyways, I was
Jeremy's
saying,
been ranting about what the people haven't heard yet.
Yeah, because wherever we stop tonight, I think this is all we're going to do. We're not going to drag this along, because the back end of it, like I was just telling everybody, is basically the same questions in different orders. They're just people asking the same questions, but with different verbiage. So there really isn't much to miss. There are a few really good questions at the end. But even the really good ones are met with the answer. We're going to need to talk about that in a closed hearing, or I can't talk about that. So,
or I won't give up my sources, things like that.
Right. That was another one too, because one of the guys is like, well, what's your source? We know your source is in the Department of Defense. Is that correct? And he's like, well, I can't give up my sources. And he's like, it's the entire Department of Defense, bro. Yes or no? Like, it's huge. It's too big.
Yeah, he's like, I'm not going to narrow it down.
He literally said, I'm not going to narrow down the universe in which my witness, or, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
So, but like I was saying, this guy had made a really good point about how we're using technology that's not made for tracking UAPs or UFOs. We're using technology used for weaponry to track this stuff. And of course, we're going to have issues with it. Of course, it's not going to be able to stay up with it because we're not using the right technology. We're not using technology for this purpose. Just as if we wouldn't use a microscope to look at a planet, right? We would use a telescope because that's the right tool to use. Well, we shouldn't be using FLIR to track craft that are flying, Mach whatever and turning at a 90-degree angle without causing any structural damage whatsoever. So, anyways, now that we have Jeffrey here, we can finally hit play and get going. Unless you guys had anything else to put out.
Fuck Apple.
But I think the big one, Jake, to answer your question about what I really wanted to talk about, is how a lot of people are walking away from this saying that they are convinced that what these four men are trying to put out, mainly the admiral, is trying to put out, is that these things come from the ocean, and I think that's super interesting.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Ready?
Yeah, go for it.
All right. There we go.
Ask unanimous consent.
Who to ask because we don't know
What the
where to go
heck?
next. So
It jumped back to the 35-minute mark.
take it head on. To the incoming administration and Congress, I say to you, we need immediate public transparency. And this hearing is an important step on that journey. If we approach the UAP topic in the same way as we as Americans have met other challenges, we can restore our faith in our government institutions. Together, we can usher in a new era of accountable government and scientific discovery. I believe that we as Americans can handle the truth. And I also believe the world deserves the truth. Thank you, esteemed members of Congress, for your time today. It is profoundly appreciated by many.
Thank you. I ask unanimous consent for Representatives Ogles of Tennessee and Boebert of Colorado to be waived onto the subcommittee for today's joint subcommittee hearing for the purpose of asking questions. Without objection, so ordered. I would now like to recognize Mr. Schellenberger for his introductory remarks.
Chairwoman Mace, Chairman Grothman, Ranking Member Connolly, Ranking Member Garcia, members of the subcommittees, thank you for inviting my testimony. One of Congress's most important responsibilities is oversight of the executive branch in general and the military and intelligence community in particular. Unfortunately, there is a growing body of evidence that the U.S. government is not being transparent about what it knows about unidentified anomalous phenomena, and that elements within the military and the IC are in violation of their constitutional duty to notify Congress of their operations. President-elect Donald Trump and former President Barack Obama have both said that the government has information about UAPs that it has not released. There are other explanations for UAPs than that they represent a new form of life or non-human life. Current dominant alternative theories, including those put forward by AARO, are that UAPs are some kind of natural phenomena we don't yet understand, like ball lightning or plasma. They could also be part of some new U.S. or foreign government weapons programs, such as drones, aircraft, balloons, CGI, hoaxes, or birds. Whatever UAPs are, Congress must be informed, as must the people of the United States. We have a right to know what UAPs are, no matter what they are. However, we now have existing and former U.S. government officials who have told Congress that AARO and the Pentagon have broken the law by not revealing a significant body of information about UAPs, including military intelligence databases that have evidence of their existence as physical craft. One of those individuals is a current or former U.S. government official acting as a UAP whistleblower. This person has written a report. This is the report that says the executive branch has been managing UAP NHI issues without congressional knowledge, oversight, or authorization for some time, quite possibly decades. Furthermore, these individuals have revealed the name of an active and highly secretive DoD unacknowledged special access program, or USAP. The source of that document told me, that the USAP is a strategic intelligence program that is part of the U.S. military family of longstanding, highly sensitive programs dealing with various aspects of the UAP problem. The new UAP whistleblower claims that the U.S. military and IC database includes videos and images taken using infrared, forward-looking infrared, full-motion video, and still photography. The report that was just shared with Congress says Immaculate Constellation serves as a central or parent USAP that consolidates observations of UAPs by both tasked and untasked collection platforms. Immaculate Constellation includes high-quality imagery intelligence and measurement and signature intelligence of UAPs, the whistleblowers report adds. The sources of this intelligence are a blend of directed and incidental collection capacities, capabilities, positioned in low Earth orbit, the upper atmosphere, as well as military and civilian aviation altitudes and maritime environments. The report to Congress details in detail various UAPs, including spheres, orbs, disks, saucers, ovals, triangles, boomerang, arrowhead, and irregular organic. The report describes various incidents found in the human intelligence databases. One involved orbs surrounding and forcing an F-22 out of its patrol area. In another incident, the crew of a Navy aircraft carrier watched a small orange-red sphere rapidly descend from a high altitude of 100 to 200 yards directly above the flight deck of the CVN, or aircraft carrier. And since my reporting on this Immaculate Constellation last month, another source came forward who told me that they saw a roughly 13-minute long, high-definition, full-color video of a white orb UAP coming out of the ocean approximately 20 miles off the coast of Kuwait. It was filmed from a helicopter. Then halfway through the video, the person said the orb is joined by another orb that briefly comes into the frame from the left before rapidly moving again out of the frame. The person discovered the video on SIPR, the Secure Internet Protocol Router Network, which the DoD uses to transmit classified information. A leading UAP researcher who utilizes the Freedom of Information Act to find out what the government knows, John Greenwald, told me last year that the U.S. government had been increasingly denying his request for UAP information. He has been doing FOIA requests for 27 years and has an archive of 3 million pages. The government has for decades denied any interest in UFOs, he told me, but the documents that he has assembled show that behind the scenes, it was a completely different story. Contrary to the hopes of many advocates of transparency, the government has been restricting more information since the leak of 3 UAP videos in 2017. The DoD organization AARO has been labeling many documents with a B7 exemption, which Greenwald says does not make any sense. They're stating that anything AARO does is involved in law enforcement investigation, which allows AARO to not release it. Greenwald says that the DoD has denied the existence of a UAP and ATIP-related records on multiple occasions, only
get to
to
the first
acknowledge
line of
them
questioning
after
here in
an
about
appeal
10
was
minutes.
filed. He added
These are
that the
just their
Naval Air Systems
introductions.
Command in March 2022 stated they found no additional UAP videos. It seemed strange that they had 3 and only those 3, but other requests had been filed by the Black Vault, that's John Greenwald's group, to seek out more places UAPs might be hiding. Then in September 2022, the Navy admitted that the UAP-related videos and photographs existed, but denied the request in full for their release, saying that the requested videos contain sensitive information that are classified and exempt from disclosure. The DoD will deny things on a Monday and then admit to it on a Friday, said Greenwald. He said the government can and does release videos that protect secret methods of capturing it. They fall back on the sensitive platform excuse a lot, he said. However, the on-screen information can be blurred and scrubbed. The metadata can be removed. I'll show you this example here. This is a presentation from the UATP task force. This is completely absurd. It's nuts, this level of censorship, of redaction on a document. It shows the redaction of how many reports they've collected, for how many years. 2 of the 3 potential explanations are blacked out. The Pentagon, the intelligence community is treating us like children. It's time for us to know the truth about this. I think that we can handle it. Thank you very much.
Pause
Thank
that
you.
shit.
I would now like to recognize Mr. Gold for 5 minutes.
I mean, he's got a point, right?
Yeah.
I mean, time to take off the kitty gloves. Let's dive in. Go ahead, Hefe. I know you got something.
Not really. I mean, like as I was saying in the chat, I know like the first when whatever this chick's name is, I forget, or she starts
Miss
going off
Mace.
Miss Mace, right?
Yeah.
She goes to the first couple questions, and the first couple answers were just straight up like, I can't answer that, or I can't answer that here, or I can't answer that now, right? Or like I won't
answer that. Yeah.
And I was just laughing listening to that earlier. I was like, of course you can, right? Like, and it's funny because it came right after, I don't know what, 30 or 40 minutes of straight up all of these people like, this is super important for all of this to
Right. Well, I know that there was a couple of senators that came forward over the last week or two and said that they need to somehow create legislation for protection of these whistleblowers. Because right now they technically don't have protection, apparently, is what I'm hearing today. But if you go on X and you go to some of the senators that were part of this, you go to their X pages or Twitter pages, whatever your fancy, you'll see that a lot of them are calling for protection for these people so that they can say things to the public. So I don't know. I definitely think that we're going to have some more hearings in the future. And I think that we're going to see some legislation pushed forward for some protection for these people. And I hope they get it, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that to me, that seems like the only thing about this that might be like a positive, really, I guess. Because to me, it seems like they're just doing a whole lot of just like nothing. Yeah, it's just a whole lot of like hype, feels like.
It's like, why even be there?
Why even
Yep.
be there, right? Because what was the last one? What year was 21, right? It was like 3 years ago. So, and same thing happened then, right? It was all this like, oh, we could talk about it in a closed session. Okay, well, did you? And what of it?
Yeah.
Have you heard anything from Grush at all since then?
No, that's the point.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, so they take these guys into a closed room after this and they talk more and they whatever, and then what?
Then you don't hear from them ever again.
That I see is that like we're getting the little glimpse, we're getting the public glimpse of them basically saying like, hey, look, there is some weird shit happening, right? And that's as far as it's ever going to go. Because as soon as they do get access behind closed doors to whatever they need access to, they're immediately going to be like, oh, cut that off to the public, right? So I think it'll stay secret forever. And this is just like us getting a little hint, like, yeah, we are doing some shit. So,
you know what really pissed me off during this is the amount of people who were in double meetings during this.
Yeah.
Like you had some senators or whoever they are, congressmen, that were rushing back, and you can hear them winded behind the microphone. They're like, "Oh, sorry, I was double booked for meetings. I had to run over here real quick in order to get my questions in.
My governor was here. I just had to do a meeting real quick.
Yeah,
yeah. The guy right at the end, and then he asked the same questions as everyone else was just asking. It's like, man,
they don't care.
It'd be, Well, I think some of them do. There were a couple of these congressmen who were pretty straightforward, like, hey, there's something happening, we need to figure this shit out, let's stop the bullshit. I like that
for sure. But I think that the like talk of it, like letting the public know, that's just them talking, right? Like, that's not going to happen, because even if they do, like I said, they get the data, even if all the data that the DOD or whoever has it gets released to them, and like they get to go through it and do all their analyzing or whatever, like then it's not going to come out to us, not like anytime soon.
Right.
Yeah, I hear it.
Maybe we'll get like a new video or two,
Just like you said yesterday, like even if it was like a meteor is about to strike the earth, they're not going to say anything because they want to have the roads clear to save themselves and their families and let everyone else die.
True. Yep.
Doesn't matter. The public doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's how I feel about it. But anyways,
Cool.
yeah, we can keep riding through this.
Let's do it.
All right.
Minutes?
Thank you, Chairwoman Mace, Chairman Groffman, Ranking Members Connolly and Garcia, Representative Moskowitz, and distinguished members of both subcommittees. I'm grateful to all of you, as well as your intrepid staff, for the opportunity to testify, and would like to begin by discussing courage.
I like the person with
Courage
the hand
is what it
tattoos,
takes to tackle this
forearm
topic.
tattoos behind him.
And courage in the
wanna hear
face
that
of
person talk.
adversity is what I see in front of me, beside me,
Spoiler
and
alert,
behind
that's
me.
all henna.
Per my introduction, I'm currently the Chief Growth Officer at Redwire Space and have had several leadership positions at NASA. That being said, I want to be clear that I'm speaking exclusively on my own behalf and not for Redwire, NASA, or any other organization. However, I am here today
Are these people
to
just
speak
sitting
out
on
for
like
science.
a pew
Science
behind him? They're
requires
just
data,
shoulder to shoulder,
which should
knee
be
to knee.
collected without bias or prejudice. Yet, whenever the topic
They're
of
pretty
UAP
scrunched in there,
arises,
aren't they?
those who wish to
Mhm.
explore the phenomena are often confronted with resistance and ridicule. For example, members of the NASA UAP independent study team, particularly
Flashing
those in
tank signs back
academia,
there.
were mocked and even threatened for
You
simply
just throw up the heart
having
signal?
the temerity to engage in the study of UAP.
Yeah.
Our best tool for
He's like,
unlocking the mystery of UAP is
love
science,
you.
but we cannot conduct a proper inquiry if the stigma is so overwhelming
that just daring to be part of a NASA research team elicits such a vitriolic response. Therefore, one of the most important actions that can be taken relative to exposing the truth of UAP is to combat the stigma. And this is where I believe that NASA can be eminently helpful. The NASA brand is synonymous with hope, optimism, and credibility. If you were to take a walk down the National Mall, you would immediately see the NASA logo on t-shirts, hats, and bumper stickers. Few federal agencies enjoy this kind of popularity. I've never seen anyone wearing an Office of Personnel Management t-shirt, which is why NASA could play such an influential role. Specifically, NASA could, with relatively little cost and effort, host symposia on UAP, or even just participate in existing panels examining the topic. NASA personnel stepping forward and participating in such discussions would make a powerful statement to the scientific community that UAP should be taken seriously
wore
and
my
researched
lies
accordingly.
shirt tonight.
In regard to research, NASA has vast archives, much of which may contain important UAP data. Again, for relatively little cost and effort, NASA could create an AI or ML algorithm that could search the agency's archives for anomalous phenomena. I suspect that such an effort would not only result in information that will help us to understand UAP, but could result in data that will assist in other areas of scientific inquiry, such as anomalous weather or meteorite activity. Beyond its existing archives, NASA could act as a clearinghouse for civilian and commercial UAP data. During my work on the UAP independent study team, it quickly became evident that there is no clear or well-publicized process for civilian pilots to report UAP sightings. The stigma associated with UAP hampers the number of pilots that would report such phenomena, but even for those who overcome the stigma, I believe the current FAA guidance is largely unknown and poorly understood. In order to effectively collect UAP data, the independent study team recommended the use of NASA's Aviation Safety Reporting System, or ASRS. This system, which is administered by NASA and funded by the FAA, provides a confidential means for the reporting of safety violations in a voluntary and non-punitive manner. Over 47 years, the ASRS has collected nearly 2 million reports. ASRS is the perfect tool to collect UAP data, which could then be collated by NASA and shared with the public at large. Leveraging ASRS could create a treasure trove of UAP data, potentially hundreds of thousands of reports, supporting this hearing's goal of exposing the truth. And I'm grateful to our two co-chairs and other members who have already incorporated this idea into proposed legislation. At this hearing, and as others have demonstrated, the UAP issue is justifiably dominated by national security and defense. However, I would urge the subcommittees to keep in mind the numerous ways that NASA and the FAA, as well as commercial activities in the air, in space, and in the water, can generate a massive amount of invaluable data on anomalous phenomena. I cannot help but be excited by the potential for such an endeavor, since scientific discovery is driven by anomalies. It's the existence and study of anomalies that led to the theory of relativity, quantum mechanics, and nearly all of humanity's scientific breakthroughs. This is why the study of UAPs should be embraced, since whatever is occurring, the chance to garner new knowledge should never be ignored. We must be thorough in collecting information, fearless in making conclusions, and open to following the data, no matter how mundane or extraordinary the results may be. I began this testimony by praising the Joint Subcommittee members for their courage, and I will end by echoing that sentiment. As the saying goes, the truth is out there. We just need to be bold enough and brave enough to face it. Thank you.
I feel like I'm ready to go
So-
Spartan kick somebody.
I don't think that utilizing NASA to get the information out there is going to convince people that it's true. I wouldn't trust NASA as far as I could grab a space shuttle and throw it, because I watched the green screen effects from all the freaking all the International Space Station videos and all that sort of crap, and I'm just like, yeah, I mean, I don't trust them at all with that sort of divulging of information.
Yeah, no thank you.
Yeah, you already know how I feel about that.
We know that you love them.
Yeah, man, I'm a huge fan of NASA, dude. I'm such a huge
Right.
fan that I decided to live in the same town so I can, visit and explore Kennedy Space Center and that kind of thing. It's great. It's excellent.
Yeah.
It's awesome. I can
Flash
see the
them.
launches. The launches are right here all the time. It's amazing.
All right,
Sorry,
let's get
that's the
ready to get
Canadian
into the
way of
questioning.
spelling favorite.
Oh yeah, very Canadian.
That's so
With a-
Canadian.
Can you
Look
guys
how
hear my
Canadian
chair
he is.
massaging me right now?
No.
Oh.
Can you hear my dog and wife bashing the floor above me?
No.
I don't hear that
Okay,
either.
that's good. All right, you ready to get into the questioning?
Yeah, let's do
Cool.
it.
Thank you. Thank you all. I will now recognize myself for 5 minutes of questioning. I have a lot of questions and I have a lot of witnesses. So I would just ask if it's yes or no to please just tell me yes or no. If it requires more than that, be very succinct because I would like to go down the line and ask as many questions as possible. So for the Admiral this morning first, former DoD official Chris Mellon reached out to you about satellite imagery from 2017 that depicts a UAP. What were the dates in 2017 when this occurred?
I can't share with you the details, ma'am, but I can do it in a closed setting. And I can also tell you the agency that wrote
Yep,
a
Steve's
report.
one of them.
Okay, so who has the imagery?
I can tell you that in a closed setting.
Yeah.
Can you describe what was depicted in the
Fucking
satellite
bullshit.
imagery? Just a description.
It was a UAP, ma'am.
That's it. No other description.
The term that the analysts used, they called it the button. It was a disc-shaped object.
Okay, where was it?
I can't tell you that, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Okay,
Could've been
Mr.
anywhere.
Elizondo, you stated in your testimony that, quote, advanced
It was on
technologies
Earth.
not by our government or any other government
sky.
are monitoring sensitive military installations around the globe, end quote. If these technologies are not made by any government, who's making them? Private companies, or are you implying they are crafted by a non-human intelligence?
Well, ma'am, that's precisely why we're here. The problem is that temporally speaking, over decades, not just the last 10 years, to put this in perspective, when
Are these private companies you're implying, or is this non-human intelligence?
it may be both.
Okay.
When it comes to Blue Force Technologies, I would not be able to discuss. that,
Okay.
ma'am,
Are you read into secret UAP crash retrieval programs?
We would have to have a conversation in a closed session, ma'am. I signed documentation
Jeez.
3 years ago that restricts my ability to discuss specifically crash retrievals. I submitted for my book through the DOPSR process, which took a year for it to be reviewed. And what is in the book is what I was told I'm allowed to talk about.
Has the government conducted secret UAP crash retrieval programs? Yes or no?
Yes,
Okay. Were they
His book
designed
is
to
called
identify
Imminent,
and
by the
reverse
way.
engineer alien craft?
No,
Yes or no?
nice.
yes.
Does the U.S.
I
government
actually
have any
have it on
reverse,
order right now. It should be here
already answered
tomorrow.
that question about retrieval programs. Do any U.S. contractors have the same?
I would prefer to address that in a closed session, ma'am.
See, okay, pause it.
In your book, you mentioned government employees who've been injured by UAPs placed.
Pause it. He
I'm positive.
he okay, first he deflected. Okay, I just want to point this out. He deflected like the Admiral did a couple times, right? Then he answered a couple questions directly and quickly without even thinking, right?
Yep.
Then she asked, do contractors have this? And then he said, closed setting.
Yep.
This is what I've been talking about, bro. It's not the governments and shit, man. It's a breakaway group of, it's a faction of dickheads who have the technology.
Yeah.
Factions of dickheads.
Right? I don't even think it's the contractors. I think it's like former contractors, right? It's like, that's it. I don't know. But yeah, that to me is just interesting. You can keep going if you want, or if you got something to say about that. But
No, I think
the company is called Dickheads R Us.
yeah, dickheads are us. They got UFOs, man.
Yep. Wild.
they got the logo on their tail.
Yep.
Yeah.
Based on leave and receiving government compensation for their injuries. Is that correct?
That is correct.
How can the government deny we have recovered craft if they're paying people because they've been injured by recovered craft?
Ma'am, that's a great question. That's why I think we're here again, because I've seen the documentation by the U.S. government for several of these individuals who have sustained injuries as a result of a UAP incident.
It's a crazy idea, right? The hypocrisy and the logic. Okay, Mr. Schellenberger, I'm going to say it again to be very clear. Immaculate Constellation. What's its mission and how are they funded?
Its mission is to, as I stated, its mission is to, it's an unacknowledged special access program. Its mission is to document UAPs.
Okay. And do you, for your story and your report, do you have more than one credible source?
I do.
Sourcing. Okay.
I do.
And then why do you believe your sources to be credible? How do you judge the veracity of the documentation you've been provided about this program?
I checked the sources, and they are who they say they are. They are current or former government officials. I wanted to also add that I did not specify that they were Defense Department employees. I didn't specify the agency nor the gender.
Would they have included non-government employees, people that aren't employed by the government?
These are, I'm comfortable saying that these are government or previously government employees.
Any of them currently employed by a private contractor or private contractors?
I'd rather not say.
Okay. What's the key takeaway, just a few seconds, about the Immaculate Constellation document you provided us today?
I think that what the American people need to know is that the U.S. military and intelligence community are sitting on a huge amount of visual and other information, still photos, video photos, other sensor information, and they have for a very long time. And it's not those fuzzy photos and videos that we've been given. There's very clear
High
images,
res.
high resolution.
How many visuals, graphics, videos, photos?
I mean, I've been told hundreds, maybe thousands. I mean, I also wanted to say, because there was some conversation around concern around the revealing of these materials, revealing the source collections, but some of these are shot from helicopters using normal videos of oceans. I just think that's absurd that somehow you're going to be revealing some secret U.S. technology by revealing that you've photographed orbs off the coast of Kuwait.
Okay, thank you. 8 seconds. Mr. Gold, did the NASA independent study team get briefed on what you call OSAP? Very quickly.
I flagged the Advanced Aerospace Weapons System Application Program to our chair and our DFO. We did not get briefed, but I believe it is definitely worth looking into. That was probably the largest UAP review effort ever, and I think produced a lot of interest data, including revealing Nimitz. I don't know if my fellow witness Lou might want to. He did yeoman's work on it. Might want to comment.
Okay. All right. I'm going to turn to Mr. Moskowitz, who will be recognized for 5 minutes of questioning.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. So, Mr. Gold, you gave a whole diatribe for a couple of minutes about UAPs, science, data collection, stigma. A lot of non-believers in all of this would just ask a very simple question. Why? Why is it so hard? Right? Like, why are people, anytime they ask, why are they always thwarted? Why are they always judged? Why is they always have misinformation spread? Why is there always retribution? Why is it always met with an ear? What's the why? If it doesn't exist, why is it such a problem?
I think if you go through the history of science, Representative, it is always difficult for breakthroughs and new information, regardless of whether it's UAP or any other kind of discovery. And in science, we're supposed to be open, but when you break with the orthodoxy of what's believed, whether it's Galileo saying that the Earth doesn't rotate or the Earth rotates around the sun or the sun doesn't rotate around the Earth, it's always challenging for new beliefs. And the more extraordinary those discoveries, then the more extraordinary those new beliefs, it's very difficult. So I think this is natural. There's natural conservatism that when it comes to science, but this issue in particular has been very difficult where, again, even to attempt to study it becomes problematic. But every hearing like this, every news report, every video, documentaries, I was privileged to be a part of something Dan Fair is putting together. I think many of us have interviewed for it, documentary over 30 different government officials. Every brick in the wall will help get us closer to getting to the truth.
I appreciate that. Mr. Elizondo, did I have that correct?
Sure.
I'm a recovering lawyer, so I'm going to put my hat on for a second. You said you signed a document. Love that. Who gave that to you?
The U.S. government, sir.
Okay, you have a copy of it?
It is stored in a SCIF right now. I do not have possession of it. The U.S. government does.
What department of the U.S. government gave you this document?
I will say the Department of Defense. Unfortunately, I can't say in this forum much more than that.
You specifically said the document said you can't talk about crash retrieval. Well, you can't talk about Fight Club if there's no Fight Club.
Correct.
Okay, I'm just making an observation.
Yes, sir.
So that document that you signed, that you said exists, specifically said you can't talk about crash retrieval.
Correct, sir. It was a limitation on what because already I'd been speaking publicly about the topic. And so the document said you can continue saying X, Y, Z, but you cannot discuss the topic.
When you give me the atmosphere of signing this document, you're in a room by yourself,
I'm in a skiff with a security officer, sir.
just one-on-one. Anybody else?
There may have been an assistant as well. It was in a skiff within a Department of Defense facility.
Give me your background real quick.
My background is I went to school to study microbiology and immunology, entered into the U.S. Army, and after a very short stint in military intelligence, I became a counterintelligence special agent. As a civilian, later on, I became a special agent in charge, running investigations in counterterrorism and counterespionage primarily, with some experience in counterinsurgency and counter-narcotics. And then in 2009 timeframe, when I came back to the Pentagon after a tour with the Director of National Intelligence, I quickly became part of a program that was originally called OSAP that evolved into the program now called ATIP, which is where those videos that we now see, the Go Fast, the Gimbal, the FLIR, that was part of our effort, sir.
Right. So you're not some conspiracy theorist. You actually have a legitimate background.
Well, sir, I'm certainly not a conspiracy theorist. I'm fact-based, just say facts.
So when you're
I'm
in this
offended.
room, I want to paint the picture for everybody. You're in this room, you're by yourself, you're in a skiff, you're handed a document. How long is the document?
It's about a page front and back. So basically you have some things they call trigraphs, which I cannot, again, talk.
How long were you given to sign the document?
As long as I needed, sir.
And what if you didn't sign it?
Well, I suspect there'd be repercussions. I wouldn't have access to certain information.
Were you allowed to ask a lawyer, or weren't allowed to ask for a lawyer to review the document?
It wasn't an option, but they probably wouldn't have allowed me to, because the document itself was pretty explicit about you have to be, putting me in an interest. Let me try to thread the needle here. There are certain documents that we have in the U.S. government that allow people to have access to certain programs, whether it's a special, and I'm going to be very generic here, whether it's a special access program or a controlled access program, SAP, CAP, whatnot.
How many people have to sign that document?
It depends how many people are going to get access to the information, sir.
Okay. Last question. Doctor, real quick, can you tell us about the Omaha incident in greater detail? I've read your background, right? Some people would label you as a member of the deep state, since you worked in government for a long period of time. But can you tell us more about that incident? You've written a lot about that.
I wrote a lot about incidents like it, Congressman, but that specific incident involved the USS Omaha, the littoral combat ship of the U.S. Navy operating off Southern California. I don't remember the exact date. It was within the last decade. And what the watchstanders on the bridge observed was a UAP, again, something that was aloft but had no observable exhaust or control surfaces. So it was something that couldn't be explained. And then they saw it enter the water from the atmosphere and going through the air-sea interface. And so thus exhibiting transmedium travel.
Thank you. I yield back.
Thank you. I'll now recognize Mr. Grothman for 5 minutes of questioning.
Yeah, we'll start with Mr. Gallaudet. During a previous UAP hearing, Navy Commander David Fravor discussed the TikTok object engaged in 2004. Are you familiar with the incident? The TikTok incident?
Yes, sir.
That's almost 20 years ago, right?
Yes, sir.
Hey,
It's
lay
been
off. He's
said there are more
drunk.
videos, documents, and reports related to this incident. Do you believe the information regarding the TikTok incident should be available to all members of Congress? And in your expertise, what reason would the Department of Defense possibly have for not releasing information that's over 20 years old?
Thank you, Congressman. I don't think there's any good reason to withhold information and important data, especially of national security concern from Congress.
Well, what would they say?
I will speculate, sir, that they don't want to share that kind of information because it reveals weaknesses in our ability to monitor and protect our airspace.
Okay. In your written testimony, you claim last year's UAP hearing before this oversight committee confirmed that UAP related information is, well, it's not only being withheld, but that elements of the government are engaging in a disinformation campaign to include personal attacks designed to discredit UAP whistleblowers. Could you elaborate on that statement a little?
Yes, sir. Earlier this year, I met with the DoD's All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, and what I thought would be a 90-minute meeting just to meet with leadership turned out to be an hours-long influence operation on me, where they attempted to convince me of the validity of the very flawed and error-ridden historical records report. In addition, they they tried to have me question very valid UAP reports like the Tic Tac incident, and even coming to stating possibly that the Tic Tac was American technology. And then, of course, if you ask David Fravor or Alex Dietrich, the two witnesses, they were convinced it was otherwise. And then, and they also cast discredit on various UAP whistleblowers and witnesses to question their validity and credibility as witnesses.
Okay, we'll go to Mr. Elizondo. Hope I got that right, or not at least
Close
not
enough,
that
sir.
wrong. You're familiar with the recent drone incursion over Langley Air Force Base?
Yes, sir.
The owners of these drones remain unclear. The U.S. military has not been able to give us in Congress an answer. Given your experience with the Department of Defense and the intelligence community, how frequently are UAP sightings over military installations? And secondly, I suppose hypothetically, you could have incursions over just say regular airports. Is it obvious these incursions are more likely over military facilities than just a random airport out there?
Yes, sir. There's definitely enough data to suggest that there is certainly some sort of relationship between sensitive U.S. military installations, also some of our nuclear equities, and also some of our Department of Energy sites. There is a long historical record that some of your colleagues may have documentation that demonstrates this. This is not a new trend. This has been going on for decades, and that information has been obfuscated, unfortunately, from folks like you in this committee. And I think that's problematic because ultimately, at the end of the day, we have a significant situation here. We have something that can enter into U.S. airspace completely with no attribution.
And how long has this been going on?
Sir, decades. And there's information that will hopefully be entered into the
Can you
record.
think of any possible reason why they can't release any information they have on something, say, 15 or 20 years old?
Sir, if I could echo my colleague here, Admiral Gallaudet, I think one of the big issues that we have in the intelligence community, Department of Defense, is we don't want to broadcast any potential vulnerabilities or weaknesses in our national defense systems or on intelligence collection platforms. Therefore, when you have a conversation where you address a problem for which there is no solution, it makes that a very uncomfortable conversation to have.
Okay, we'll switch to Mr. Schellenberger. The primary reason you're here today is because you published an article on the news publication that you own called Public, right? Alleging that a new unnamed government whistleblower has come forward asserting that a highly classified program exists dedicated to recovery and reverse engineering of UAP technologies. What can you give us? What specific evidence you have, or that your source provided you to substantiate the claims about the existence of the Immaculate Constellation program?
Well, you have the report in front of you now, so you can see it for yourself. I checked the report and I did not find it based on existing cases. It was new cases for me. I hadn't found anybody. So that answered for me that it was not obviously circular reporting, which is one of the big concerns in this space. I also had the name of the program confirmed by more than one additional source. So yeah, and then of course I checked to make sure that the source was who they claimed to be.
Okay.
I should also say that when I said before it was this database, it is a much broader program than that. It also includes human intelligence, and then, as you mentioned, the retrieval and the
any knowledge of what country these things originated in?
No, I have no idea.
Okay.
Okay, I will now recognize Mr. Burchett for 5 minutes of questions.
Thanks, Chair Lady. I request unanimous consent to enter into the record documents provided to us regarding legacy UAP programs and psychological operations. Lou Elizondo.
So ordered.
I also want to thank my buddy Jeremy Corbell for providing us documents and access to some whistleblowers. Mr. Elizondo, what is your last position with the federal government?
Sir, I was the Director of National Program Special Management Staff, managing a White House Special Access Program on behalf of the National Security Council.
How would you characterize UAPs?
An enigma, sir, and a frustration. We're talking about technologies that can outperform anything we have in our inventory. And if this was an adversarial technology, this would be an intelligence failure eclipsing that of 9/11 by an order of magnitude.
Are there classified Department of Defense materials related to UAPs that you believe could be safely disclosed to the public without compromising national security?
Yes, sir, I do. I would never, ever try to endorse providing some sort of information that could compromise what we call a blue force technology or capability. But I do believe there's a lot of information regarding this topic, and I've been very vocal about it, that should be shared not only with the public, but most importantly, with members of Congress.
Are you familiar with my friend David Grush?
Absolutely, sir. I had the privilege and honor of working with him myself several years ago at U.S. Space Force.
Last year, as you know, he testified that the U.S. has run a multi-decade UAP crash retrieval and reverse engineering program. Would you agree with that?
Yes, sir.
Are there UAP programs operating without proper congressional oversight?
100%.
What are they?
Unfortunately, sir, I would have to have that conversation.
So this was a topic that we talked about pretty intensely yesterday, and I think this is one of the big things that we need to talk about in general when it comes to this whole thing, is the fact that these guys are sitting up here claiming that, well, I mean, it's not necessarily a claim, it's a reality, right? That there is a branch or something, some entity within the U.S. government that is running a UAP operation, whether it be for research, reverse engineering, whatever, without congressional oversight. And as we talked about yesterday, they also do not have to answer to anybody. They do not have to share what they're spending their revenue on. It's completely black. What's up, man? Go ahead.
Well, this is what Jeff talks about all the time. And this is just proof that, yeah, this thing exists, because Jeff talks about it all the time, saying black budget programs. And we talk about saying, like, yeah, you could give a FOIA request to the Department of Defense and they could come back to you and say, we have no information on this. And they might be telling the truth because it's not up to them. It's part of a Raytheon project or a, whatever, outside private company, or maybe it's part of the federal government, but the Department of Defense isn't the one that's running this show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So, yeah.
It's
like,
some interesting shit, man.
It's just the stuff that we keep repeating over and over and over ad nauseum, but this is the first time we're seeing it in a congressional type setting where the guy is straight up saying, like, yep, that exists.
Yeah. Like the old saying, like in the movie Independence Day, right? Or like when Obama said, like, I know nothing about this. Like, he actually isn't lying. Like,
right.
They don't know about this. I mean, they know it's out there, right? But they don't know about it.
Right. They're not, even the commander in chief doesn't have the need to know. Right.
Yeah.
Or doesn't want to know.
Well, I was saying in the chat earlier, Elizondo looks scared to me. I don't know. Like, I'm no body language expert, but he just looks scared. Now, I would assume that this is probably very nerve-wracking being in this situation to begin with, but and he's very concise with his words, so I don't think he's like super terrified at this moment, but he just looks shook up to me. He's fidgeting a lot. So it just makes me wonder, like, how much does this guy know, right? And a lot of these questions that we really want answered, he's like, I can answer this, right? It's just not here now. So I just wonder, like, what he knows that keeps him up at night.
He knows something. He definitely knows something. I'm interested in getting his book in. Like I said, I have it on order right now. Apparently, there's some pretty good stuff in there that he had approval to publish. So right. I don't know if anybody's aware of the backstory with this book, but apparently it went through over a year's worth of review by the U.S. government and a whole bunch of redactions in order to be published. So he went through the proper channels in order to get it published, but there's supposedly still some really interesting stuff in there that people are surprised that the U.S. government allowed to be published.
You think that maybe he's not saying stuff out loud because he's not supposed to, or because he wants people to read his book?
That's a good point, though.
Probably both.
It is a good point.
But he is under
Um,
oath right now, so that'd be a risky move, right?
Yeah, that's something I don't get. Is how are these guys under oath, but yet they're not answering questions? I mean, I understand the NDAs, right? I totally get it.
Well, it's not just the NDAs, but it's also the security clearance, right? Just because they're talking to a member of Congress doesn't mean that they're talking to a member that has a top secret security clearance or higher.
Yeah, but why is it okay to do it in a closed session?
I imagine that it would only
I mean, I understand the
that
public.
maybe that the congressmen or women or congresspeople, whoever that was in that closed session, would get NDAs to sign, would get
Hmm.
you know, sworn to secrecy for a specific amount of information under the penalty of like treason, right?
Yeah.
It couldn't just be broadcasted to not only the Congress people, but also whoever these individuals are who are sitting behind them. You know, the reporters, these whoever these folks are. We can't see their faces. I have no idea, but you can't just broadcast it out there because unless you brought shut the news cameras down or the cameras down entirely, and then brought everyone in and had a NDA signing party and a hey, if you say anything about this, we're gonna try you for treason and throw you in prison for the rest of your life or execute you type stuff. Like,
Yeah.
so that's why there's the closed sessions, and in that case, you could pull people in and have a controlled telling of information. And even then, I doubt that they're going to get the answers that they want. They're definitely not going to get who the sources are, because these people are worried that the sources are just going to get, hammered for, because maybe it's a high level official, and maybe the Department of Defense, maybe it's one of these black budget, entities or whatever, that aren't supposed to be telling anybody anything about what they're doing and what they're researching and all this sort of stuff, but they did.
Yeah.
Right. So they're not going to give up the sources. They're not going to give up the departments, thing like that. Maybe they'll go into detail about, the incidents, like the location of that one thing that he saw, that he's completely unwilling to say anything about, what was it? Where was it? All this sort of stuff. Can you give me the basics? It was a UAP. Okay. Oh, great.
You don't say. All right. Y'all ready?
Yep.
Or you guys want to call it?
Now let's see if we can roll through this.
All right.
In a closed session.
I know you said that, and a lot of people are frustrated with those kind of answers, but we're asking those kind of questions so you all know what the heck we're up against. You also mentioned in your opening statement that the Pentagon's Public Affairs Office employs a psychological operations officer as a singular point of contact for UAP-related inquiries. Why the heck would they do that?
Sure, that's a great question. I would ask the Pentagon. There's a long history here of that individual providing misleading and false information to the public through various news outlets and media outlets in order to discredit this topic. I've personally been victim to it. We have the documentation to substantiate where this information has been absolutely inaccurate, that has been provided time and time again. And it turns out that that individual was also working with former leadership of Arrow at the time as well.
And we punish them by giving them multi-million dollars more than they ask for every year. Admiral Gallaudet, you mentioned in your opening statement
what a punishment.
An email you received from the operations officer of the Fleet Forces Command regarding unknown objects almost colliding with U.S. military planes. Did anyone respond with knowledge of what the objects were?
I received no response, sir.
Did the exercise get canceled?
The exercise did not get canceled.
Why do you think the commander of Fleet Forces operations officer never discussed the incident again?
Sir, I'm speculating because I didn't have an exchange with him, but I believed it to be part of a special access program, the information and the video, which we have known now it was. And he realized he couldn't share that openly with the recipients of the email, and therefore the email was pulled from everybody's account.
Again, tell us what happened to the email from the commander of Fleet Forces.
The day after I received it, and all the other recipients received it, which were all the subordinate commanders of U.S. Fleet Forces, so 1- and 2-star admirals, including strike group commanders, the email was wiped or deleted from our accounts.
Okay.
And then no one talked about it.
All right. Have you specifically had any experience with submersible objects?
Sir, I've no personal experience, but I've had witnesses on submarines come to me and say they've seen on sonar data.
Correct. Okay. How would you characterize those, and how do they move?
The one instance that was revealed to me was in the 80s on a nuclear-powered submarine, a ballistic missile submarine, that the object exhibited the characteristics of a Russian torpedo in terms of its speed of movement and closing rate with the submarine, and then it slowed and followed the submarine slowly in its wake for a period of minutes, and then rapidly exited the scene. And nothing that we know of and technology-wise could replicate that.
And the speed of these objects was faster than anything that we have or anybody else has that would be manned. Is that correct?
It was on the order
Underwater.
of a torpedo. So
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. But as it exited,
Well, I don't exactly know how fast a torpedo is, but I expect it does better than my old outboard Scott Atwater. So I'll take that as a yes.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
That's a
have you
flex.
any experience with the All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, ARROW?
Yes, Congressman, as I mentioned previously, I have met with them.
Okay. You heard Mr. Elizondo describe psychological operations for those contacting the Department of Defense about UAPs. You mentioned a similar influence operation by ARROW. Why are federal agencies invested in running information operations about UAPs if they do not exist?
Yes, sir. But I'll make a statement on ARROW's behalf. They have new leadership. The office has reached out to me to meet again, and I take that as a good faith effort, and we'll see where that goes.
Thank you, Chair Lady. I've run over. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tennessee. I would now like to recognize Mr. Higgins. You're the king of Tennessee. Mr. Higgins, you're recognized for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Elizondo, Mr. Schellenberger notes in
This guy's
the
question. This
report
guy's the
that
worst.
we've been given for this hearing. I believe
I like
Mr.
the little
Schellenberger, let me
joke
shift you with the
transparency
author
he
of
gave at
this,
the end about trying to
this
trick the guy.
report.
He's just.
I'm sorry,
he
sir. I'm
wastes-
not the
he
author.
wastes
Mr.
of-
Schellenberger, were you the author of this report? There's
No, I
no
was not.
name on it.
No,
Do you know the author?
I do.
You do. And how would you estimate that madam or gentleman, the author?
The person is a current or former U.S. government employee.
And it states here that
The
this
person
the
may or may
public
not
version
exist and
of
have a
the
face.
author's report.
Yes.
So where might one find the non-public version of the author's report?
I don't know the answer to that.
Would that be with the Department of Defense?
I don't know.
But you do know the author.
I do.
Do you know what the author's sources were?
The author's sources are described in the report. These databases, the Immaculate Constellation.
Right, but you expressed some confidence in the sources
I would.
earlier in
I do.
testimony. You expressed confidence. So do you know those sources?
I do.
Are they within the Department of Defense?
I can't say.
You can't say or you won't say?
I won't say
Okay, why not?
because I protect my sources, and I think the
But
reason.
you're not naming them. It's a big department, but many of us on my side of the aisle would say it's far too big. So you're talking about the Department of Defense, sources from within the Department of Defense?
I'm not willing to reduce the
Okay.
potential universe of where my sources might be.
Okay, moving on. In this report, Mr. Elizondo, for reference, several types of allegedly alien craft or possibly alien craft or unknown aerial phenomena, what we used to call UFOs, are described. Spheres and orbs, discs and saucers, oval or tic-tac, triangular shape, boomerang and arrowhead, and irregular or organic. Mr. Elizondo, does that summarize to
They
you
outline
the
each one
types
of these in
craft
that
we're discussing
Immaculate
today?
Constellation
So
document
that is a
too.
general
It's pretty cool.
morphology, historically speaking, of
Okay,
many UAP.
so those descriptions are very
Yeah.
different craft. Is it your assessment that they would come of different origins?
It's possible, but it's also could be in sense a matter of utility. And let me just say for the record, I never read the report that or the article that Mr. Schellenberger put out. The reason
That's
is,
a good point. We're just referencing it
yes, sir.
for descriptive purposes for the American people. Mr. Schellenberger, in this report, it's striking to me that regarding the descriptions of experiences with these various craft, several of them include biological effects and several do not. Are you familiar with what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Okay, so spheres and orbs, triangular craft, and irregular or organic craft include some descriptions of biological effects, including feelings of unease, electronic device malfunctions, long-term psychological effects such as anxiety or insomnia have been noted, feeling of being watched, a shared awareness with the triangle craft, and under the irregular and organic craft, biological effects include physical sensations of warmth or cold and unexplained smells and psychological distress. So these are very specific descriptions of the reactions of human beings, which allegedly have been noted from a study here, a report. Did all of those experiences would have been described by the sources that the author used?
I'm not sure I understand.
This is a very broad description of biological effects, and it's striking to me that they are present with relation to some types of craft, but
Right.
absent in others. This would require a great deal of research and study. Can you explain that?
My understanding is that this is the database is very large. It includes both the images, the videos, the still images, as well as the human intelligence, the reports, the raw data from individuals having these experiences. So in answer to your question, yeah, I mean, I think we're looking at a very large amount of data collected over many decades.
And that data is held by the Department of Defense?
Well, I will say that after I published, I was told that this program, that the USAP was actually managed by the Department of Defense, but held at the White House.
Roger
But
that.
that's a single source, and I don't have multiple sources to verify that.
Thank you, sir. I did my best to trick an answer out of you, but I was partially successful. Madam Chair, I yield.
Thank you. I now recognize Mr. Frost
stop
for
it
5 minutes
there.
to questions.
Thank you.
Let's go ahead and do our final thoughts for tonight. It's up to you guys if you guys want to knock out the last 50 minutes on another episode or not. But I know that there's not too much left. There's a whole lot of I can't answer that, or that'll have to be answered in a closed session.
Maybe there's a little bit more. I like I watched all this stuff. I like it. I like the responses.
So do you want to do another episode?
I'd like it.
Okay. When? We could talk about that in a minute.
Yeah.
You guys got anything to put out on this? I know mostly this episode is more of listening to it than anything, but
Sorry, no. I just think I said it 1,000 times, bro. I don't think it's gonna go anywhere, man. I hope it does, at least for us in the public, but I don't know.
I think the biggest thing we've pulled out of this so far is the definitive yes that there are black budget or alternate U.S. government programs that are explicitly dealing with these things that no one has access to.
Yeah.
I think that's by far the biggest takeaway from this whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I don't want to sound arrogant, but I already knew this, so it's not a fucking surprise, but it is nice to be like, see, but that's it, man.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. Well, I guess we're going to do a part 3 of this sometime soon. So if you're in the chat, I think it's just Kenzar now. Kenzar, you're a trooper. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll go ahead and close her out. That has been another episode of the Infinite Rabbit Hole podcast. Make sure that you go and check out our Patreon at patreon.com/Infinite Rabbit Hole. Subscribe to us here at twitch.tv/Infinite Rabbit Hole for when we go live for all of these breaking news moments. And our weekly episode on Sunday at 8 p.m. Central Time. That would be 9 p.m. Eastern and 6 p.m. Pacific. If you go to infiniterabbithole.com and click on the little microphone button in the bottom right hand side, you can leave us a voicemail that we could slap on the front of an episode, and you can put whatever you want there. If you have your own Twitch channel that you want to promote, do it. As long as you end it with "Welcome to Infinite Rabbit Hole" or "Let's see what these guys are talking about" or whatever. Do it up. Well, that has been it, guys. We'll see you right here in the next path of the fork of the Infinite Rabbit Hole. Bye, everybody. Good night.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for checking out the Infinite Rabbit Hole podcast. If you're looking for more of our stuff, head on over to infiniterabbithole.com, where you can find links to all the podcast players that we are available on, and even our video platforms such as TikTok and YouTube. While you're there, make sure to check out all the links for our socials and hit that follow so you know when all the new stuff from our podcast comes out. And until next time, travelers, we'll see you right here in the next fork in the path of the Infinite Rabbit Hole. Bye.